In this video, we're going to look at making objects that are transparent and reflective, like bottles or flasks. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll make a brand new layer. I'm going to move this layer up to the top. And I like to work in red. And I'm just going to go ahead and create some kind of a bottle. Nothing fancy. But keeping in mind that this is essentially comprised of two cylinders, right? You've got one cylinder stacked on top of the other cylinder. It's basically a complex volumetric shape comprised of two simple volumetric shapes. So when you're drawing, you want to make sure that you draw through your forms. And I'll put a label on the top here. And what we will also do is indicate the fact that this object is dimensional, that we can see through it. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to ink it. Come back in. This is a custom ink brush tool. It's called my square brush. And I've got a video that talks about how you can make your own custom brushes without having to pay anybody any money. And I will put a link to that in the description as well. Let's rotate the canvas so we can go ahead and draw the label. I like to overdraw outside of the lines here, come back in and trim it. And the reason for that is I can still keep that nice thick line quality. You have to touch it up. Okay, so I've got a bottle inked. And the part that you're here for is, okay, how do you make it look like glass? Well, I'm making a new layer above the bottle layer. And on this layer, I'm just going to take a thin line and bring it all the way down. I'm not going to worry about the fact that I'm going over the label. And I'll have a thick line that goes next to it, and I'll kind of repeat the same process. This is essentially the stuff that's reflected back. And I'll indicate a little bit of curvature on this form. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I can now extract the parts that I don't need by using the regular lasso tool, to trim that area off. And I'll do the same thing for the label up above. And what this does is it just establishes some continuity in those lines. I'll put another one over here. And we've got something that's reflective. So what I can do now is I can actually go through and color this bottle. So why don't we hide the pencil layer to begin with? And we'll make a new layer underneath our inks. We will use the magic wand tool, and you want to make sure that you set your tolerance to a high enough number. And I go over that in a previous video as to why. And anti-alias contiguous and sample all layers. When you have that selected, then you can simply take the magic wand tool and click outside of the bottle. And then what you're going to do next is you're going to inverse the selection by hitting Shift Command I. And I can fill this bottle up with something. I'll just make it red. And I'll go back through and select the label. I'll hit Command J, Command U. Give it a different color, and then I'm going to zoom in, and I will also color the cap on this bottle, making a sloppy selection around the cap. I've got my base color layer, Command J, Command U, and I can dial in a specific color value that I want. So let's go ahead and think about how we can place a liquid in it. So if this bottle is red and we put some kind of a substance inside of it. Right now, if I attempt to just color above this layer, it's not going to look like the liquid is contained within the bottle. So what I would like to do is I'd like to make the bottle layer, the red color here, I'd like to set that to a multiply. And what that'll do is it'll allow me to create something on a layer underneath that will show through. So I will do just that. I will make a new layer, and I will just take my lasso tool like so, making a sloppy selection. And that sloppy selection, I want to actually capture the color values that I have. So I'll go back to the base layer, hit Command J to make a copy of it, and then move it on a layer underneath. And what I've basically done there is, use my selection tools to make a transparent bottle with liquid inside. And to really see that, I can change the color of the liquid. But we're not done yet. So we've got some liquid that's sitting inside. And on the layer that contains the glass component, I just want to go back in and get rid of those black lines. And I'm going to do that by painting over with a kind of a darker version of the bottle color. So I'm going to first lock that layer that contains the reflections. This is the color lock layer. I will use my eyedropper tool to sample the color of the bottle. I will then go down on my color palette and pick a darker value. And then I will switch to my brush tool, B, and I will simply paint over those areas. Now when you color lock on a layer, what that means is for anything that's visible on that layer, you can paint on it. And anything outside of it, you can't. You're limited to painting only on the areas that contain some object. In this case, we've got the lines on our glass. And so I'm just coming back in. Notice I'm not touching the outside of the bottle. I'm just dealing with the inside of the bottle. And you'll notice that the red value that I'm choosing here, it's a little bit hard to see it when you have the liquid underneath. And what I need to do is just do a contrast check. I need to darken that liquid a little bit so that you can see some of this reflectivity. So go back to the liquid layer, Command U, and just make that a little bit darker. And the last thing I want to do here is I want to add some sense of a light that is hitting this bottle. And I'll come back in with white. And I can vary my lines. Now I've got something that is reflecting light. So in that exercise right here, you've been exposed to the idea of using the multiply. What multiply allows you to do is it allows you to make a color affect or influence the layers that are underneath it, which is what we did with this bottle layer over here. We set that to multiply, and that allowed the liquid to show through. So I hope you found this tip to be useful. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you taking time to watch these videos, and I will see you in the next one.